Hi all. In this current lecture, we are going to discuss about the post-fertilization events in angiosperms, that is the flowering plants. So as we have seen in the angiosperms, there are two different fertilizations that takes place simultaneously. One is the syngamy, which is actually considered as a true fertilization that results in the formation of a zygote, which in turn develop into embryo. Whereas the triple fusion or vegetative fertilization, in which male gamete will be fused with the secondary nucleus, will develop into endosperm ultimately through primary endospermic nucleus. So here the primary endospermic nucleus produced will precede in the division. That is, the division of primary endospermic nucleus will take place before the zygote division, which means before the development of embryo, a small amount of the endosperm has to be developed. This is to ensure the nutrition to the growing embryo. So coming to the different types of endosperms, we have classified the endosperm based on the mode of development. So in that, the first kind is nuclear endosperm. So in this, so when you just look into the cell division process, actually the name of mitosis meiosis is based on the karyokinesis only, how the chromosomal distribution will be during cell division. Based on that, we have given the names. So here, the primary endospermic nucleus. So this is the nucleus will divide. Say it is divided into two different nuclei. Now the cytokinesis has to take place. The cell wall has to form surrounding this, but it will not happen in the case of nuclear endosperm. So the primary endospermic nucleus will undergo free mitotic divisions. Again, this nuclei will divide into two and this one into two. So there will be further divisions here. So the karyokinesis without the formation of cell wall. That's how the cell division will be. This nuclear division will be. Therefore, it is free mitotic divisions without the cell wall formation. Such kind of endosperm is called nuclear endosperm, as free nuclear divisions are taking place. So this is how it appears. So you can see these are all the free nuclei present inside this. This can be seen in the case of Arachis, Coccinia, and even in the Capsula also. Now coming to the cellular endosperm, so here there is no cell wall formation in the case of nuclear endosperm, but in the case of cellular endosperm, the nuclear division will be followed by the formation of cell wall, like this. And again, this one may divide into two, and again there will be cell wall formation. So there is always cell wall formation followed following this mitotic divisions in the nuclei. So the primary endospermic nucleus undergo free mitotic divisions with cell wall formation here. That's why you can see the difference. These are all the free nuclei, but here you can see the cells. This you can see in the Helianthus, Scoparia, Adoxa. In these plants, you can see this. Now there is a third kind where the primary endospermic nucleus will move towards the base and divide into two. Now there will be two different chambers formed in this case. One is the large chamber towards the micropylar end. So this thing you can see, this is towards the micropyle. This is the large chamber that forms. Inside this, the nuclei will divide through free mitotic divisions. So there is free nuclear divisions here without the cell wall formation. Whereas the other side, that is, this is towards the chalazal side. Towards the chalazal side, the further divisions, the cell wall formation will take place. There may or may not be division further also. So this is how two different things you can find in this, that is nuclear as well as the cellular. Therefore it is called the halobial endosperm. So this thing can be seen in the case of the hydrilla and Wellisnaria. And there are few other important cases in which one of the important thing is the coconut that we consume regularly, where the coconut water that we consume is actually free nuclear endosperm. So whatever the fluid present inside the coconut, it is actually the endosperm, free nuclear endosperm. It's a liquid endosperm. Whereas the white kernel that is present, this thing is the cellular endosperm is. So in the case of coconut, the endosperm is actually considered as double endosperm because both cellular endosperm and the nuclear endosperm are present inside this. And in the betel nut, the kind of endosperm is stony endosperm. And there is a different kind where the endosperm may be irregular and it will have the uneven surface. Such kind of endosperm is called ruminate endosperm. So that you can see in the case of Ananas squamosa, that is the custard apple, Areca catechu, this is Areca palm, Passiflora and Myristica. So such kind of ruminate endosperm is very common in the case of this palm plants. Areca palm plant is one of the examples for that. Now coming to the functions of endosperm, the very important function of the endosperm is providing nutrition to the growing embryo. So it can regulate the precise mode of embryo development by providing nutrition and secreting certain substances also. This is a different effect which you can see in the endosperm development. Sometimes the pollen grain, the kind of pollen grain can affect the color of endosperm. So the color of endosperm changes due to the kind of pollen grain which is involved in the fertilization process. This kind of effect is called xenia. I repeat, the effect of pollen grain on the color of endosperm is called xenia. This you can see in the case of maize. So you can see different colors in the um, seeds, that is fruits or seeds of this maize because of the changes in the color of endosperm. In the case of metaxenia, the pollen will affect the somatic tissue lying outside the endosperm. So it is not the effect on the endosperm, it is the effect on the other somatic tissue outside the endosperm. That is called metaxenia, which you can see in the case of date palm, that is Phoenix dactylifera, for example. Now coming to the seeds. So as we have seen, the seeds are the result of fertilization in the ovule, that is the post-fertilization structure of the ovule is the seed is. Normally, in the regular cases, we have seen each ovule possesses one embryo sac. This is a regular condition, normal condition is, which means in each embryo, as there is only one egg in the regular case again, when one ovule develops into one seed, one embryo sac or the egg develop into one embryo, which means one seed possesses one embryo in general. So will there be any deviations from this means? Yes, we are going to discuss that at the end of this. So basically in general, in one seed, there will be one embryo as there is only one embryo sac in one ovule. So anyhow, we'll come back to this particular point. Now coming to the classification of seeds, the seeds are basically classified depending on the kind of endosperm they possess, in the sense whether the endosperm is present or not. So as we have seen, when the embryo is actually developing, so once the zygote develops into embryo and the embryo is developing, further development, so say the embryo is in the process of development. In the dicot or monocot, we have seen the development area. During this process, it requires nutrition. This nutrition is provided by the endosperm. That's what the function of the endosperm is. So by the time seed is produced, the endosperm, which is being utilized in the formation, the development of embryo, may or may not be present in the seed. So when I just take the seed may or may not possess the endosperm. So the seed is not having the endosperm doesn't mean that endosperm is not produced. Endosperm is definitely produced as a result of triple fusion. Primary endospermic nucleus will definitely develop into endosperm. But if the endosperm is completely utilized during the development of embryo, the seed may not possess the endosperm. Such seeds are called non-endospermic seeds. Right, as this endosperm is also called albumin, they are also called X-albuminous seeds. So in the seeds, that is non-endospermic or exalbuminous seeds, no endosperm is present, as it is being utilized by the growing embryo in the initial stages only. Right, now these seeds can be of dicot type or monocot type. For dicot exalbuminous or non-endospermic seeds, important examples are pea, groundnut, bean, mango, cucurbits. All these possess they will not possess endosperm. So when the endosperm is absent, if the endosperm is absent, as we know, the seed also require reserve food material, because still the embryo development is still pending. Still, it has to develop into the plantlet. So here, who will provide to the provide nutrition to this embryo inside the seed means the cotyledons. So whenever endosperm is absent inside the seed, in that cases, the cotyledons will be fleshy and they'll possess the nutrition which will provide nutrition to the growing embryo. So that you can see in the case of this. Now the example for the monocot non-endospermic seeds, it's the orchids. Now, whereas in the case of endospermic or albuminous seeds, the seed will possess endosperm. So it is filled with the endosperm. Right. So when the endosperm is present, the cotyledons need not to be fleshy. So here usually you'll find the membranous, the thin cotyledons can be found. Right. So this you can see in the case of castor, and you can see that in the case of sunflower also. So it is a dicot type. Now coming to the monocot, paddy, that is rice, wheat, maize, barley, coconut, all these are the examples for endospermic or albuminous seeds. Now coming to the structure of various seeds, that is in dicots and monocots, the one which you can see here is the Cicer aratinum plant, seed from that. So in this, earlier we have seen the pre-fertilization and post-fertilization structures in that. So as the ovule is actually developing into this seed, the protective coverings of this ovule, that is integuments, will develop into the protective coverings of the seed. So here, outer integument will develop into the outer coat, that is testa of the seed, whereas the inner integument will develop into the tegmen, the inner coat of the seed. So testa and tegmen are developed from outer and inner integuments respectively. So that's how the development of the protective sheath will be, and there will be the micropyle of seed is actually from the micropyle of the ovule only. So the ovule possesses a small opening, and that will remain as such and will become the micropyle of the seed. So through this micropyle only there will be gaseous exchange, so absorption of water during the development, further development of the seed. That's how the structure will be. And coming to the dicot seed, right? The first one which we have seen is actually, you can see here, fleshy cotyledons, and there is no endosperm. It is non-endospermic one, and this one is the endospermic one. So whenever there is endosperm is present, this is completely endosperm only. So when there is endosperm inside the seed, the cotyledons will be fleshy. These are cotyledons. You can find membranous, that is thin cotyledons can be found. These are the thin cotyledons are. So that's how the dicots non-endospermic seed will be. Now coming to the monocot, the one which we can see here is from the rice, that is Oryza sativa. Actually, in the case of Oryza sativa, that is in the rice, and even in the case of wheat, we can find, and even in maize also, we can find a kind of fruit called caryopsis. So caryopsis fruit is a kind of fruit where it is single seeded. There will be only one seed, and the fruit wall and the seed coat are fused. So you cannot differentiate the fruit wall and the seed coat. There will be fusion of these two in such a way that you cannot differentiate them. Such kind of fruit is called caryopsis. So the one which you can see, the rice grain or maybe wheat grain or the maize, These are actually fruits, not the seeds. So both seeds and fruits will be almost similar. Now coming to this um, rice seed, here, as we have just seen, it is a fruit, in fact. So it is enclosed in a brownish husk that consists of glooms in two different rows. So you can find one brownish husk on the surface, and in the seed, the endosperm will form the bulk. So this is completely the endosperm is. This is fully the endosperm is. This is fully the endosperm is. This is separated from this embryo by one epithelial layer. This is the epithelium layer. So it will separate the endosperm from the cotyledons and the embryo. And the cotyledon here is a single cotyledon in the monocots, which is a shield shaped, that is scutellum. It is called scutellum. The other one will be as one remnant one, that is called epiblast. It is not shown here. So this scutellum will provide the nutrition to this growing embryo, and the scutellum in turn will get these nutrients from the endosperm through this epithelium. So ultimately the endosperm is providing nutrition to the growing embryo. So that's how the further development in the monocotyledons, like rice will be. So as we have seen, the seed or LS of fruit both are same only because here the fruit wall is fused with the seed coat in such a way that you cannot differentiate these two, right? So both seed and fruit structures will be same. Now coming to the advantages of seeds. So as we know, seeds are produced in gymnosperms and angiosperms as the possess ovules. So in the importance of these seeds, particularly in the case of angiosperms, when you just see that, we know that the fertilization process is not depending on the water, except in some species. During pollination and even during fertilization also, water is not required. Water is required for the plant, but I'm just talking about the direct fertilization will not involve the water. But in the case of algae, Bryophyta and Pteridophyta, water is must for the fertilization to take place. They'll completely depend on the water for the fertilization. But in the case of gymnosperms and angiosperms, water is not necessary for the pollination and as well as fertilization process. So as the fertilization process is independent of water, seed germination is actually depend on the water. So for the seed to germinate, as we know, water has to be provided. So this will ensure that whenever there is development of plantlet from this seed, water will be available. So if the seed germination is independent of water, by the time the plantlet is produced, water may not be available. So to ensure the water for the young plant, that is the plantlet, in the initial stages it requires water. The seed development, seed germination is actually depending on the water. So seed germination is water dependent. This will help the plant survival. And as we know, the seed can help in the dispersal process. So there are certain adaptations for the dispersal. So this dispersal can help in the reducing the competition, that is intra-specific or interspecific competitions will be decreased. So there will be proper geographical distribution of the species will be. And the seed possess food reserves either in the form of endosperm or maybe in the cotyledons. It possesses food reserves, and we know the importance of seeds in the agriculture. So without seeds agriculture cannot be possible. The farmers will utilize these seeds produced, and the further cultivation and all will completely depend on the seeds. So we can store the seeds and they can be sowed in the specific seasons. It is all this is possible because of the seeds only. And coming to the viability of seed, there is a lot of variation in the viability of seed. That is how long the seed is able to survive before germination. That you can find lot of variations. So far the longest viability that we have observed so far is from Lupinus arcticus. So the name Arcticus refers to its the region from which it is actually observed. It is actually found in the Arctic tundra. So when some excavations are being performed, this seed is being found. So after 10,000 years, it is able to germinate and able to produce a plant and even able to flower. So the viability in this case is 10,000 years in the case of Lupinus arcticus. And the recent example is Phoenix dactylifera, that is a date palm. It is being found in the excavations of King's Herod's palace in Jerusalem near Dead Sea in the Mediterranean region. So this is another example for the seed viability where it is 2000 years. Now coming to the size of seed again, you can find again lot of variation. The seeds, for example, in the case of orchids, possess just 20 micrograms. So see each size, each seed will weigh only 20 micrograms. Now coming to the Lodoicea maldivica, it is a common name of which is double coconut. There the seeds weight will be 6 kg. So each seed will weigh 6 kg here. Now coming to the germination of the seeds, the seed germination is of two different types. So you can see that in this figure. So this is the seed. You can see the radicle. This is the radicle, and so now these root hairs are started developing. Now in this first case, you can see the hypocotyle is being extended. So as we know, the seed possess the embryo. Embryo will have the embryonal axis to which the cotyledons are attached. Right. Now the hypocotyle is a region below this cotyledons range. Epicotyle is the region above this cotyledons range. So whenever there is an extension of this hypocotyle, that is the region below the cotyledons level, this part will be extended. So like this the extension will be. Therefore the cotyledons will be sent out of the soil. So you can see the cotyledons are coming out of the soil due to the extension of this hypocotyle. But when there is an extension in the epicotyle, that is the region above these cotyledons, the cotyledons will be pushed downwards or the cotyledons will remain inside the soil only. So in this first case, as the hypocotyle is being extended, cotyledons are coming out of it. But here the epicotyle is extended in the second case. Therefore, the cotyledons are remaining inside the soil only. And you can see only the plumule is coming out of it. So the first kind is epigeal. Epi is above, gl is soil germination. As the cotyledons are coming out of the soil, it is called the epigeal germination. Now in the case of hypogeal germination, the cotyledons will remain inside the soil. That's why the name hypogeal germination, below the soil level, that is germination will take place. Now this epigeal germination can be seen in the case of castor and even in the case of cotton, whereas the epigeal can be found in pea, gram, groundnut, mango. In all this you can see the hypogeal germination. And in some cases the seeds may germinate when they are present inside the fruit itself. So already we have seen this particular word vivipary in animals, where the development will be inside the parent, inside the reproductive tract of the parent in the case of animals. Now here in this case, the seeds germinate within the fruit. Normally the seeds once released from the fruit, when they are present in a suitable environment like the soil, you can see the germination. But here they are germinating when they are present inside the fruit only. That such kind of condition is called vivipary. This you can see in the case of rhizophora and micronata as well as heritaria. You can find this. And when it comes to the function of nucellus is again the nutritive tissue only, and it will provide nutrition to the growing embryo sac. So in the ovule, this is the embryo sac is, and this is completely the nucellus is. This nucellus will provide nutrition to the embryo sac. Now, normally the nucellus will be utilized during embryo sac development and later embryo development. But sometimes the seeds may possess the remnant of this nucellus. It may remain. Then that particular nucellus is called perisperm. So perisperm is the remnant of the nucellus in the seed. So that kind of seed is called perispermic seed. This you can see in the case of black pepper, that is Piper nigrum, and even in the case of beetroot you can find this. Right, coming to the fruits. So as we know, fruits are the post-fertilization structures of the ovary. So this is the ovaries and this is the ovules. So ovule will develop into seed, whereas the ovary will develop into the fruit. So each fruit may possess one or maybe more seeds, because each ovary may possess one ovule or maybe more than one ovule. Now coming to the classification of fruits, basically the fruits are classified into three different categories depending on from what kind of ovary they develop from or what kind of flower they develop from. So here in the first case, the first two cases, that is in the simple fruit and aggregate fruit, both are actually developed from a single flower. So whether it is simple fruit or aggregate fruit, both are developed from a single flower. That is, one flower develops into one fruit, one flower to one fruit, in simple fruit as well as in the aggregate fruit. But the multiple fruit is the different one, where the fluorescence, one complete fluorescence will develop into one fruit. So here the true fruit definition is, fruit is the post fertilization so change in the case of ovary. So the ovary is actually the fruit is. So here actually what, one complete inflorescence is developing into one of a fruit. So such kind of development is called multiple fruit. So coming to the difference between the simple fruit and aggregate fruit. So in the case of the first one, that is in the simple fruit, in the case of simple fruit, the development of this particular fruit will be from one ovary. That is, just take one flower is there where one ovary is present. From this, if the fruit is developed, it is called simple fruit. Or if the flower consists of many ovaries, but all these ovaries are fused, that is syncarpous condition. From this, if the fruit is developed, then it is called simple fruit. So the simple fruit is developed from either the monocarpellary flower or multicarpellary syncarpous flower. So let us just consider this as, here one, here also one, here only one carpel, here many carpels are there, but they are all fused. So therefore I am just taking this one as one. So if this development is from this, it is called simple fruit. The aggregate fruit is actually developed from multicarpellary, obviously, but apocarpous condition. So multicarpellary syncarpous condition, simple fruit; multicarpellary apocarpous condition, aggregate fruit. This you can see in the case of custard apple. So again, the simple fruit is further classified. It may be fleshy or maybe dry, depending on whether its nature, the fruit's nature, and they are further classified depending on what kind of ovary they are developed from, or maybe they are dehiscent or not. So depending on dehiscence also we have classified this. This multiple fruit so is of again two different types, Psoriasis and Syconus. So the Psoriasis can be found in the case of jackfruit, for example, and Syconus can be found in the case of fig, where it is actually developed from Hypanthodium. So this is how the fruits development will be. Now coming to some other important structures that are developed in the flower apart from the regular structures which we have seen so far. In the case of apple, strawberry, cashew, all these cases, the thalamus will become fleshy. Normally, the ovary develops into one fruit. So, a true fruit is actually considered as the post-fertilization structure of the ovary. If the fruit, that is whatever the edible part of the fruit is there, if it is developed from any other part other than this ovary, then it is called false fruit. So in this case, thalamus or receptacle, the base of the flower, is developing into fruit. That is, it is becoming fleshy and edible. That's why it is called false fruit. So, in the case of Anacardium occidental, that is again the cashew only, the scientific name of which is Anacardium occidental. Here, the flower stalk also will become juicy. So, this thalamus as well as the flower stalk will become juicy in the case of cashew. So, the figure which is shown here is actually cashew. The true fruit is this. So, the kind of fruit that you can find in this case is nut. So, this. So, this is the true fruit is nut is. This is actually the false fruit because it is not developed from the ovary. So in botanical nomenclature, fruit is the post-fertilization structure of the ovary. So brinjal, for example, or maybe tomato. In the regular usage, we consider them as vegetables, but truly they are actually fruits. So brinjal, the brinjal that you see is actually fruit, and the tomato that we see is actually fruit. Or maybe bean that we see is also fruit only. So because all these are the post fertilization structures of the ovary only. Like sometimes the perianth become fleshy. So as we know, perianth is when this sepals and petals are not differentiated, then that condition is actually called perianth. So together, sepals or petals, if no differentiation, then it is called perianth. That particular old is called perianth. So the perianth also may become fleshy. This you can see in the case of jackfruit, where the kind of fruit is sorosis. It's kind of multiple fruits. And sometimes, in the case of, as in the case of Ricinus communis, the cells which are present at the tip of the outer integument. So if you just take this is the outer integument. So at the tip of this, that is around the micropyle region, this is the micropyle. These cells will become fleshy. Then that condition is called caruncle. This you can see in the case of Ricinus communis. This is the carunculus. And sometimes the funiculus, the stalk of the ovule will become fleshy. So this is from the Myristica plant. So in case of Myristica and Pythicelobium, you can find such kind of structure. So that is called aril. So aril is the fleshy structure developed from the funiculus. So often they will be colorful. So you can see the color in the aril. Normally, the calyx as well as corolla, that is sepals and petals will be withered off. That is, there will be withering of these parts. Sometimes the calyx may be persistent. That is, even after the fertilization, the fruit may possess this calyx. So in the case of brinjal, that is Solanum melongena, or even in the case of tomato also, you can see the leafy structures at the base of the fruit, these structures. So normally the sepals have to be withered off, but here in this case, the sepals are persistent. So persistent sepals can be found in the case of Solanum melongena, and sometimes they may cover the complete fruit. So you can see this is the fruit, and the sepals are actually covering the fruit. This you can see in the case of Physalis minima. Apart from these regular developments, so the seed development, fruit development, this is such kind of developments, there are some deviations and some other phenomena also you can find in the angiosperms. So in the case of Asteraceae and grasses, normally you can find a kind of development where there will not be any development of male and female gametes and syngamy. So here the reproduction may not involve the male and female gametes. So basically here the seeds are produced without fertilization. So in a simple way to say, the seeds which are actually the result of fertilization are actually produced without the fertilization. So directly the ovule is turning into the seed and it possesses embryo obviously. Such kind of reproduction is called apomixis. Normally, when male and female gametes are present and if there is a fusion in that, we have considered that as amphimixis. Amphimixis. That is, there is fusion of two different gametes, male and female gametes, amphimixis. But here apomixis, apo is without, away from, mixis, fusion. So there is no fusion of male and female gametes. Such kind of condition is called apomixis. Now coming to the classification of this apomixis, it is basically classified into two different types, recurrent one and non-recurrent one. The vegetative propagation that we see is actually recurrent apomixis only. So vegetative propagation is a kind of apomixis, because as we know here the vegetative propagule, like in the case of potato or whatever the example that you bulbil or whichever it is, basically there the vegetative propagule develops into one plantlet. So here there is no fertilization. Such kind of development, reproduction is actually a kind of apomixis only. That is one kind of recurrent apomixis. Whereas in the case of agamospermy, there will not be meiosis and syngamy, and there will be direct development. So again, it is further classified into three different types: adventive agamospermy, diplospory, and apospory. So in the case of adventive agamospermy, the sporophytic tissue. So as we know, the ovule possess, this is embryo sac and this is completely the nucellus, or it is having the protective coverings, that is integuments. Sometimes this nucellus directly develops into embryo. So nucellus is diploid, the embryo is directly developed from this. So diploid embryo will be developed from nucellus, or integument is also diploid only. This also may develop into embryo. So nucellus or integument develops into embryo, diploid embryo, in the case of adventive agamospermy. This is also called sporophytic budding because nucellus and integument both are sporophytic tissue only. So directly from that embryo development is. This you can see in the case of citrus and mangifera. And in the case of diplospory, normally the megaspore mother cell will undergo reduction division and it will produce the megaspores. Megaspores will develop into the embryo sac. But here megaspore mother cell directly develops into embryo. So as the megaspore mother cell is diploid, the embryo developed will be diploid only. So no fertilization, directly megaspore mother cell developing into embryo. Such kind of development is also called uh, generative apospory. It should be apospory. Generative apospory. This you can see in the case of Eupatorium and Erva. And coming to the apospory, normally you can find the normal development from megaspore mother cells to megaspores. So there is proper reduction division and there is development of megaspores also. But here all the megaspores are degenerated. Now the nucellus will be activated and will develop into embryo. So here no development from this megaspore mother cell, that is megaspores are not further developed. Instead the nucellus is developing into embryo. Here this you can see in the case of Hieracium and in the case of Parthenium. And in the case of non-recurrent apomixis, the haploid embryo sac is uh, like developed, which will develop into the embryo. So the embryo will be haploid here. But in the whatever the cases that we have discussed here, all these are diploid embryos only. And coming to another phenomena called polyembryony. So if you just look into the word, poly is many, embryony is embryos. Normally, one seed will possess one embryo. That's what we have seen again and again. As the ovule will possess only one embryo sac, the seed will possess only one embryo. But when it comes to the fruit, complete fruit, it may possess many embryos, because one fruit may possess many seeds. Each seed will possess normally one embryo. So many embryos in one fruit is a regular condition, normal condition only. But one ovule will possess only one embryo, right? If more than one embryo is present in one ovule, one seed, sorry, such condition is called polyembryony. So it is more than one embryo in one seed. So be clear with that. It is not more than one embryo in one fruit. It is only one seed. Such kind of condition is called polyembryony. It is further classified depending on how these various embryos are developed. So in this, the first kind is the cleavage polyembryony. So if you see the development of uh, monozygote twins, in the case of a human, we know that there will be only one fertilization, that is only one zygote formation. That zygote will develop into embryo. The embryo will split in the initial stages into two. Now each embryo is able to develop into one individual. That's how the development of the identical twins will be. It is similar to this. That is cleavage polyembryony in the case of plant is similar to this. Here one zygote will develop into one embryo. One embryo will split in the initial stages, that is proembryo will split into two. Each one is able to develop into one complete plant. So many embryos like this can be produced from a single proembryo. Such condition is called cleavage polyembryony. Cleavage polyembryony. So proembryo undergoing cleavage to produce many embryos. This is one type of polyembryony which you can see in the plants such as orchids. Sometimes the ovule may possess more than one embryo sac. Normally one embryo sac again, but here more than one embryo sac may be present in some cases. So if each embryo is developed from one embryo sac, now the seed may possess more than one embryo. Such condition is called, such kind of development can also be possible in the case of Casuarina. So more than one embryo sac if present inside the ovule. So derivatives of the same or different. So the development of this different embryo sac can be from same MMC or different MMCs. More than one MMC also can be present. So for example, there is only one MMC, right? It is undergoing meiosis, and among these four megaspores produced, three will be degenerated. Say only two are degenerated, two remain as such. If each one is developing into one embryo sac, now you can find two embryo sacs in this case. So like this, the development can be. So same MMC. Or normally one nucellus cell will differentiate into one megaspore mother cell. If more than one nucellus is developing into more than one megaspore mother cells, that is also possible. So different MMC is also possible. So in whatever the condition here, basically the number of embryo sacs inside one ovule is more than one. Such condition can also lead to polyembryony. Sometimes the embryo sac, the embryos can be developed from the cells of the other embryonal cells. Normally in the other embryo sac cells, normally in the embryo sac we have seen there will be egg apparatus that consists of two synergids and one egg, antipodals, and the second nucleus in the middle. Now this egg will develop into one embryo after fertilization. This is the regular thing is. Now if synergids also develop into embryo, now you can find more than one embryo in one seed, or antipodals are developing into embryo. In this case also you can find more than one embryo in one seed. So the embryos can develop from other cells of the embryo sac, right? So in the case of ulmus, for example, you can find antipodals will develop into embryo, or in the case of Aristolochia, you can find synergies developing into embryo, or in the case of Balanophora, endosperm will develop into embryo. So triploid embryo will be produced. So in all these cases, the embryo is developing from the other cells of the same embryo sac, right? Sometimes the embryo can be developed from the cells outside this embryo sac. So here it is from the cells of same embryo sac. Sometimes the cells outside the embryo sac, means nucellus, for example, can develop into embryo. So the cells from the nucellus can also develop into embryo. There also you can find one seed possessing more than one embryo. So from other cells of ovule. So here that can be nucellus or maybe integuments that you can see in the case of citrus and syzygium. So the common thing among all these developments is one seed is having more than one embryo. So this embryo can be developed, or more this many embryos can be developed from single embryo, as in the case of this, that is cleavage polyembryony, or more than one embryo sacs can be present and each one develops into one embryo, as in the case of Casuarina we have seen, or maybe the other cells of the embryo sac can also develop into embryo, or the cells outside the embryo sac also can develop into embryo. So all this will lead to many embryos in the single seed. That's what the polyembryony will be. Now coming to the parthenocarpy, it's another kind of deviation from the regular development, where partheno is without fertilization, carpi refers to fruit. So you have fruit-like structures developed from the ovary without fertilization. So this you can see in the case of banana, grapes and papaya, right? And this parthenocarpy can have the genetic basis, then it is called genetic parthenocarpy. Example will be citrus and cucurbita. And sometimes the environmental factors like frost or maybe fog or low high temperatures can also stimulate the parthenocarpy, then it is called environmental parthenocarpy. Or sometimes it can be induced by the hormones or other chemicals like auxins and gibberellins. Both hormones are able to induce this parthenocarpy, then it is called chemically induced parthenocarpy. The importance of the parthenocarpy is the parthenocarpic fruits have economic importance. So they are useful in this horticulture, particularly in the fruit plant development, and you can produce the seedless fruits also. That is having the economic importance. And here we have seen one phenomenon, that is apomixis, where the seeds are produced without fertilization. That is, when you just look into this particular phenomena, seed is produced, which is the characteristic feature of sexual reproduction, but the seed is a result of without fertilization. That is, without fertilization only seed is produced. That is, it is a result of asexual reproduction. So seed is produced but without fertilization through asexual reproduction. So this is having some importance, particularly in agriculture, where if I have produced a hybrid plant through various hybridization experiments, from this I can produce the seeds, apomictic seeds, that possess the embryo which is genetically identical to the hybrid, whatever that superior plant that I have. So I can produce the seeds with the clones of the hybrids which I have produced through hybridization experiments. So this is having the advantage of both the seed formation, which can be stored and all, and the genetic constitution also can be conserved. So this is having some importance in the agriculture. So when you are able to introduce the apomictic genes into the regular plants, you are able to produce the seeds, which are apomictic seeds. So these are all the various post-fertilization events, right? And the structures which are developed from that. And just try to find out the number of meiotic divisions. So these are the questions based on whatever we have discussed in this particular chapter. Just try to find out the number of meiotic divisions involved in the formation of 100 embryos and 100 caryopsis fruits. So how many meiotic divisions are involved in the formation of this? And try to find out what kind of pollination among these autogamy, geitonogamy and xenogamy possible in the case of maize plant, papaya plant, plant with self-incompatibility, and Helianthus plant. And in the flowers of the Commelina, both the clistogamous flowers, what pollination, chasmogamous flowers, what pollination. So what are the possibilities you just mentioned? Next, what kind of phenomena can be seen? Like we have already discussed about parthenocarpy, parthenogenesis, apomictic, and apomixis and polyembryony. Among these, which phenomena cannot help in the plant propagation? You just find out this also. So thank you very much.